There's a subtle movement of Millennials and Generation Zs in and out of the workplace. The culture and mindset they bring to the work requires a different class of its own to study. Our guest today, Ferdinand Adimefe, leads the creative team at Imaginarium INC, made up of Generation Zs and Millennials. Ferdy's love for service saw him contesting as a candidate of the House of Representatives for Etiosa local government area in Lagos State in the year 2019. He leads a community of God chasers known as The Tribe, purely made up of younger generation whose brand is tied around zest and youthfulness. Ferdy leads us into how to work effectively with this generation of people with minimal friction. Hi everyone, welcome to the BTC show. So my name is Charles Umeh, and today we have a new guest. Hi guest, who are you?
So my name is Ferdinand. Ferdinand Adimefe is my name. I wear many hats.
I know you will get confused if I ask you that question.
I was trying to, so I run a company called Imaginarium Creative, and it's a content factory. So essentially what we do is create content, and we do that with animation, with games, with production, and also with technology products. So we see content as something that it's an expression of anything a brand is trying to create, and we help them create that. So that is me on the business side. So that's my 9 to 5.
Okay.
But as an entrepreneur, there is really no 9 to 5. But let's pretend for this show that I go home at 5 o'clock. My wife will believe that. She would like to believe that.
She will just laugh.
Yeah, so on the other side, I also am part of a team of people running a church called the Tribe Lagos. And we usually don't call it a church. We say we are an expression. Or we call it movement, or we say community. But it's all of these things. It's a movement, it's a community, and it's an expression. And what we do there is we try to create an environment where people can find and connect to God away from the conventional, away from religion, but focus on intimate experiences and engineer that experience with the environment, with the message, and with the culture. So I think that's what we do there. Then I think I'm not complaining.
You're not complaining. Okay, good. One of the reasons why we got here was that we've seen your journey as, of all the groups you've mentioned, you've led younger people and a larger...
Fortunately, unfortunately.
That's how it is. So to us, Ferdy is the face of... I'm very sure why introducing the third part of you was simply because you're a young person. And you also feel that it's your own chance to contribute. But for the first category, Imaginarium, the space where you have young people, manage young creatives, and we have a larger percentage of them, and the second one, the church. How have you been able to work with this generation of people that don't want to be controlled? So for instance, you decided to take people away from their churches and call your own movement the Tribe.
I won't agree to that, sir. But let's.
No, okay, but I understand. And,
yeah, I understand that.
And the reason is this, most young people in this era don't want to be put in a box. They would rather they are very flexible, that they are free to do what they want and they still get the result. So how have you been able to work with them, work, church, and now politics? Have you been able to work with this tribe of people?
Okay, what I understand is I think I understand because I'm wired in a way as a millennial as well. So there's a spectrum of thinking. On one side, you have, in my company, you have the creative and then you have structure. Okay. And most times, companies struggle to reconcile both because the creative people don't want to be boxed. They don't want to be put under any kind of structure. But then again, without structure, you're not able to drive a project to the point where you can make money. So you need both. And what we've been trying to do in the company is de-emphasize hierarchy. Let hierarchy be more be more background, just something more subtle, but create an opportunity where people can work together as teams, and they are more project-driven. So you're on this project, this is the project lead. We're on this project, this is the project lead. But on a structure level, there is still the managers leading the team. So I do think that it's very dynamic in a way, but we can't have structure that can kill creativity. And yet we can't allow for creativity that will not yield to structure because you won't tie it. So managing that delicate balance has also been part of what we're doing at the company. And we've done well. Again, you have to understand that young people like to make impacts. Yeah. So whatever you want to do has to really make a dent and not just about doing it for just doing its sake. You want to make a difference. So for me, we've been able to craft and scale our vision to be global. So every project we're taking on right now, we want to make it a signpost. We really want to put Africa on the innovation map of the world. And sometimes, as a freelancer, you're limited. So you can keep things going, but when you're part of a company, a creative company, you get to enjoy culture, you get to enjoy community, and you also get to, you properly have to incentivize them as well. Incentivize them with good pay. And it's not always about what you give them when they start. Is that even when they start with you, as the company grows, they want to see that reflection in their personal lives and in their pockets. So you must have a sense of growing with them. But for us, we have a very growth-driven approach to work, how you have to keep learning. Knowledge is a very important plank. So we encourage people to keep learning, grow your skills, grow your knowledge base, and all of those things. So that's what I'm realizing. Then back at the tribe in the church, there's also the distinction between institution and community. Now, the reality is a lot of Nigerians that were born in the last 2 decades are pretty much Christians. You were born into a Christian community. You grew up knowing God. But oftentimes, knowing God is different from knowing about Him. And many of them can get caught up in the motion of, I'm going to church, I'm doing this, and never quite get to understand why they do what they do. So we had to strip it to the bare. And let's come back to the whys. Why do we do this? And let's come back to really having understanding yourself. So it's not a silver spoon that you inherit from your parents. You have to have conviction, and your conviction has to be rooted in what you've come to know and experience. So we try to encourage people to be real and vulnerable. Real in the sense that wherever you are on your work, there is still a space for you. And that realness would open yourself up to your community where we come alongside you to encourage you as you journey. And the transformation is the outcome. So it's not always one size fits all. It's not prescriptive. It's really just about creating an environment where they on their own can desire and experience and pursue after Him. But again, it's also important that we don't dwell too much on the dogmas. You don't cover your hair, you don't wear trousers. It is not part of why we are.
But Ferdinand, it's hard compared to where most of us are coming from. Now, we didn't used to question religion. Religion used to be whatever is said. I have the opinion that the questioning everything in this era has made us, yes, that's the challenge of this generation. We don't want to be told this is how it is. We want to be told why. The consequences of that asking why has trickled down to several things. It's made us question religion deeply. And most of the times we might be wrong midway when we start questioning. Now, this is what I mean. When young people question, it shows curiosity. There is new learning. However, there is this is not peculiar to every generation. This is solely peculiar to this particular generation. And my question is, how have you been able to? Because they will still question.
No, you know what I think? I think, again, pastors must never be afraid of questions. The only problem is that pastors claim to have all the answers, and no one should have all the answers. But there's a difference between curiosity and being cynical. Our problems is not asking questions. Our problems are that people are becoming cynical. Well, if they're not asking to learn or understand, they're asking to, out of cynicism, to make, so I think you have to understand that cynicism has its own side to it. Most people are cynical because their first experience with people who are pastors or Christians have not always translated into good relationship or good experiences. Some of them got duped by people that they claim was. So that cynicism is part of it. You cannot take it away. Some of them saw their parents give and got exploited by church and they're living with those layers and layers. So we can't take it away. But the point is, authenticity for me, it's if you have genuine questions, you have every right to ask. And creating that environment so we can have healthy conversations is very important. It's not always about sermons and sermons. It's that even the sermons can become, you can take those sermons and drive them as conversations that everyone can learn from. And I think that's something that is very fundamental. It's not the questioning, it's the cynical part of it. And we can reintroduce God to people in the way that they let them see our lives up front and center. And you don't have to come with all perfect, tidy, this is me, I have it all figured out. No one has it all figured out. And it's important that we encourage that kind of process. So the young people that have experienced, trust me, they are great people to be around with. And I've met the people who are genuinely interested in knowing and growing. And I've even met people who came in with a lot of cynicism, but halfway through the journey, it's changing. And it's something to celebrate.
How's your journey been like? How did you start? How did Ferdy finally evolve to this new version of him? Because it's obvious that you didn't just wake up from.
Okay, interesting. Is it with the business now? You have to take this question.
No, we'll start from how you started before you finally business, family, and everything is.
All right, so I studied a course in university that I wasn't very proud. Not proud of. I just didn't understand myself enough, So at the time, our parents, they always wanted security. So my mom had wanted me to study medicine. So I actually failed medicine, but the JAMB score wasn't that high. So I didn't get into medicine. I got into one of the sub-branches of medicine. This was human anatomy. Up until I got into university, I didn't know much about that course. And, halfway through filling the JAMB form, I asked my mom, maybe I should think of mass communication because I like to talk. And she was like, no, please, let's not even go there. We need a doctor in the family. And of course, the conversation is that doctors don't look for jobs.
Yep.
And if at all, you can convert this place to hospital, put 2 beds, get 1 nurse, you have money. So our parents were always thinking out of security, not out of passion. So halfway through into medical school, I got disconnected. And then when I finished my first degree, I went back for my master's, but this time I was very self-aware. I chose to do media and communications, and that was where I started my exploratory journey. But even while on campus, I started running a magazine. I was running a magazine. I was on radio. I did everything. Nobody knew I was a medical student except my classmates. I was on radio. I was just busy. So I decided that if I could have done these things without necessarily having a structure, I should study them. And because of that, the idea to do a company came. But I didn't do the company immediately. It took me about 5 years. I'd done 1 year in advertising before my master's. So when I went back to after masters, I worked for an oil and gas company for 5 years, but I was still doing brands and communication. So we're traveling around. I enjoyed that job because it came with a lot of traveling, and I love to travel. So it was in an oil and gas industry. I wasn't so passionate at the time of oil and gas, but I was passionate about telling a good story. And so when I finished, after 5 years, I started Imagineering. And for me, Imagineering was supposed to be because I'd seen a lot of creative people. I meet them everywhere. And one question I come away with is, how do I get this guy to make money? I really feel that if we have to resolve unemployment in this country, we must look to creativity. Like, it's not just SMEs. We're talking about creative entrepreneurs, people who can use their imagination to make things. Our country doesn't understand how to nurture creativity. So when you get into school, the first thing you learn is, my brother, don't be forming smart, follow the rules. So they conform you into a particular pattern, and it's as though you are educated out of your creativity and not educated into it. So if you're a creative person and most people even don't get to use it. So Imagineering is a company that for us, our first passion is monetize creativity with creative people. So most of the projects we create, we ask ourselves, this guy, we can work together on a project. Let's make it happen, let's scale. So that became the bedrock upon which we started to build. And then we entered into platform, entered into content, entered into products, and it started to expand. It's still expanding. And even today, we've done quite an interesting project, and we're still doing more. So I strongly feel, so my journey for me was partly coming into understanding that I love creative industrialization. I will tell people that if you look at China, China today has become a global, almost a world power. And one of the reasons was because they got it right with creativity. They came up with a policy on creative imitation, or what they call reverse engineering. And they had an innovation agenda that in 20, 30 years, they will not only produce but export creative stuff. And today
they stuck to it. I think the main thing was that they stuck to that plan.
They made it a plan. It was national. They incorporated it into universities. Everybody understood this is where the country was going. That single innovation agenda is responsible for why China is where they are today. Their R&D was on point. They were always into research and development. They will buy a product from America. They will sit down and uncouple it. Yeah. So what we need to do here, first of all, is creative industrialization is understanding that your people are the resources. And we have to create industries that can allow for our people to earn, to make. So when we import, we outsource jobs. We don't understand that.
Very true.
So most of the big phones we buy in Nigeria, none of them, even with the Nigerian brands, are produced here. They are produced coupled there. So you're already losing money, losing jobs to other countries.
It's expensive producing here, Eddie. It's at the end of the day, it's still, if you look at the businessman, the local businessman, why won't he produce? Because he's looked at the cost.
Now, I understand that we have issues with power, we have issues with infrastructure, but across the value chain, there are significant parts. It has to be a 10-year plan. I'm not even seeing the plan in place. All right, so even now we know that we have some crippling realities, but I'm saying 5, 10 years down the line, can we produce our own phone? There's something called protectionism in economics, right? And China today, they literally blocked foreign companies from coming in. For every American unicorn, they had a Chinese replica. Alibaba today was an answer to Amazon and eBay. And being an answer to Amazon and eBay, they have scale. In fact, they're even bigger than Amazon and eBay right now in terms of the volume.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm saying this to say that all of these are very connected. Our young people not being employed, our creative industries not being structured or mapped out to work, our government not having policies to structure, and businesses not ensuring that they create an enabling environment, not just for people to come and work, but people to be creatively fulfilled. These are all one and the same. And this also led me to politics. Just thinking policy. So I'm trying to produce a movie, and I need to work with a South African company, and there's no international co-production. So there are no treaties. You have to basically go to Mauritius to be able to take advantage of the tax incentives. Our tax laws are oftentimes just on paper, not in reality. So if you're pioneering a sector, you're supposed to get some kind of pioneer status or tax incentives. It's non-existent. And we have multiple taxations on many levels as a businessman, and you're grappling with these realities. So we need to sit people down who understand policies for the 21st century. The world you slept in is not the same world you woke up to. That's how fast the world is moving. And if the people making policies for us are people who are still in analog, we are dead on arrival. Very dead on arrival.
And that's the main reason why Fede wants to get into politics.
Yeah, so, there was a bit of anger, but there's more vision than anger. So that's
because when it's only anger, there's problem.
There's problem, because you end up like shooting everybody else. And, but I still think that if we get policy now, Ethiopia is very interesting. This is the creative capital of Africa. I can make that case anywhere and get away with it. Let me tell you why I call it the creative capital. Do you know that our fashion has made their way to UK, US, our fashion industry? Our movies, if you go to anywhere in Africa, you're watching it. If you go to anywhere in Africa, like the last time I went to as far as Gambia, they were playing an African artist back to back. If you go to Dubai, the moment you enter, you're hearing them. What it is that we've exported without, in spite of our, or despite not having structures, these things have gone that far. How much more when we are deliberate about exporting it? So we feed Africa, we feed the world. But are we deliberate about it, and how can we scale so more people can do that? How can we make these exportable products, help more people access distribution abroad with respect to their creative products? How can we look at our copyright laws, piracy laws, royalty laws, so that these creative people are going to earn a living and retire to life after years of labor?
And that's what you guys are doing at Millennials.
Yes, that's also what we're doing at Imagine.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Feli. Now we have one more thing for you to do before we end. You have two options, but I think I'll give you the lesser one. So there's a task you have. You have to break this coconut.
Jesus Christ.
See, Feli, if you don't break it, the show doesn't end.
You finish what you have started.
Okay, this will not to you.
Thank you very much. Can I open?
Yeah, you can open. I'm sure. It's not a letter bomb. It's
Wow, amazing. I look take away.